Hello sports fans, my name is Nathan Paisley and I am the reporter here at the Gladwin County Record and Clarion newspaper. I am here with Drew Porter. He is a statistician over at Beaverton football, and he's also a coach for the 7th grade football team, and he was actually even the co-op student here back 2 years ago, I think, when I started working here. And today we decided to make a podcast talking about the Gladwin Beaverton football game that's coming up. Specifically because it is reaching a milestone this year. It hasn't hit it yet, but if Beaverton does lose this game, that will be 30 years it will mark since the last time Beaverton defeated Gladwin in football. So I guess we're going to give you an overview of the history of the teams and talk about their seasons this year and what we might expect from Friday's game. I think Drew's got a little bit of information here talking about, I guess, the history of the rivalry. Do you want to talk about that? Or do you want me to talk about that?
Oh, well, I mean, all I have to say about that is I think that with the statistics that are found online and everything now, that, what'd you say, it's been since 1977?
Yeah, let's go back and give you a quick brief overview of what this rivalry is all about. Butch was created back in the 30s, and it's basically a rivalry trophy. Whoever wins the game gets to take the trophy home. And the big deal is Beaverton hasn't won since, in football anyway, since 1986. This rivalry's been going on for a long time, and Gladwin has hands down been the victor in this rivalry. Let's see, we look at my numbers here. 2008 was where these numbers came from. There's 86 games played in total, so we add 6 to that. So there's been, 92 games these two teams have played, and Gladwin has won 82 of them, 82 6-6 all time against the Beavers. It's definitely been a one-sided victory. And looking back at all of the years, Gladwin has not really had a lot of losing seasons, and Beaverton has. And that might be a big reason why Gladwin has been the victors. Now, let me give you a couple pieces of interesting information here. You might be looking back and wondering why there hasn't been a season in 30 years Beaverton hasn't beat Gladwin. Let's go back and look. They've only had 4 winning seasons since that 86 year. They were, 1989 they went 7-2, 2000 they went 6-4, in 2014 they went 5-4, and this year they'll finish with a winning season. Right now they're 5-3 with 1 game left. The worst they can finish is 5-4. But in each of those years, Gladwin has had a winning season too. So Beaverton hasn't had really a big chance to beat Gladwin. They've been fairly even every year. And even the years Gladwin has been down, losing seasons, 2-7, 3-6, 3-6. The Beavers were also having losing seasons. They were 3-6, 2-7, 0-9. So there really hasn't been a chance for the Beavers to really overpower Gladwin like we're seeing this year. Now, Drew, this is where you come in. Beaverton is having a substantially better year this year than what Gladwin is having, and this is why some speculation is floating around that this might be the year. Why don't you give us a quick review of what has been going on in Beaverton's season this year so far?
Well, Beaverton this year is having a great season, and the bottom line for this Friday's game is the motto, win and you're in. Beaverton's sitting right now at 5-3, and if they can take down Gladwin on Friday for the first time in 29 years, the first time in 30 years, Beaverton will clinch their ticket to go to the playoffs, and that will start next either Friday or Saturday. And Nick Hartner this year is having a very good year at the quarterback position. He's 30 of 60 passing with 445 yards and 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And on the ground, there are 3 players on the Beaverton team with over 300 rushing yards. Those players would be David Jenkins with 380, Nick Hartner with 350, and Nate Taylor with 304. Kyle Cassidy also has 266 for a Beavers rushing attack that has accumulated 1,577 rushing yards this season. So the run is there when you need it to, but the passing game has been there as well this year too.
Take us through some of Beaverton's, victories they've had this season.
Well, let's see. Week 1, they traveled down to St. Louis, the middle of the mitten, and it was a real dogfight on defense throughout the whole game, and it went to overtime. The score was tied 7-7. To start that overtime period, Beaverton connected on a pass from Nick Hartner to Jack Owens, which gave them a 13-7 lead. And then 2 plays into St. Louis's chance in the overtime. Nick Hartner picked off a pass that sealed Beaverton's first victory. And then from about 2.5 hours away came the Harbor Beach Pirates. Beaverton was able to overpower them on offense and win 39-22 in that one. And that took over the non-conference slate as Beaverton went into the Jack Pine Conference with a record of 2-0.
Yeah, talk about that. Without these non-conference wins, do you think Beaverton... Well, obviously, if they didn't have these non-conference wins, Beaverton wouldn't be in playoff contention right now. But the St. Louis, how have they been against them the past couple years? Hasn't been too great, has it? Or has
it's kind of been middle of the road. I think they beat Beaverton. I believe it was 31-0 last year, but it went back and forth. I think this is a fifth or sixth year that Beaverton's played St. Louis, and it's, I think, maybe 3-3, 4-2 to one side. I'm not sure about that. But then Harbor Beach, the first year that Beaverton has played Harbor Beach, they'll have a home and home. So next year, Beaverton varsity will go to Harbor Beach in week 2.
They're playing. This is the first year I think I read this they've ever played Harbor Beach.
Yeah.
And Harbor Beach has been a pretty good team the past couple years. I don't think so much maybe this year. Well, I haven't checked, but
yeah, and exactly because Harbor Beach, I believe it was in 2012, went to the Division 8 state championship and ended up. I think they ended up beating the Beale City Aggies, who are a local small town powerhouse just outside of Mount Pleasant. So that was a big win, and that was a big way to enter the Jack Pine schedule.
Yeah, and without a doubt, the 2 non-conference wins for Beaverton are huge because without them, there's probably not a good chance to making the playoffs. And it really states for what your team's going to be like going into the Jack Pine. And we know from this point that the Jack Pine is incredibly tough this year. There's a lot of good teams. And Beaverton has 500, I think they're 500 right now against the Jack Pine. Played some really good teams and played some really good games. How has their play in the Jack Pine, I guess, really described how they are overall as a team right now?
Well, let's go back to non-con. When you enter the Jack Pine with the record of 2-0, and then you fall in your first 2 Jack Pine games, 22-8 to Houghton Lake, and then the following week 20-14 to Roscommon, and then to rattle off 3 wins in the conference against Meridian, Farwell, and Harrison. That's really shows the demeanor of that team to bounce back from back-to-back losses and turn a 2-2 record into a 5-2 record before last Friday.
Mm-hmm. Now they've had some couple tough losses that were close games against Houghton Lake and Roscommon, but in my opinion, some of these losses they've only lost to very good teams. Houghton Lake, Roscommon, Clare. Clare's gonna go to the playoffs. Roscommon's in the playoffs. Houghton Lake's a win away from the playoffs. What do you think the team has learned about themselves? Because in my book, these aren't all losses. To Clare, they lost 31-14. In my book, that's a win. You only lost by a touchdown to Roscommon. The Houghton Lake game was a little rough, but what do you think the team, I guess, built off of these losses? What did they learn about themselves, to get ready for this Gladwin game?
I think that this season has showed them that they can compete with anybody. Especially last week, I went to Clare, and I watched that game, and it was a back and forth affair throughout that whole game. Clare just slipped away there a little at the end, and I think it kind of made Beaverton confident, because this whole season's been really a confidence booster for Beaverton, because they're 5-3, and then when you look 8 miles down the road, you got a team that's 1-7.
Yeah, and then the Clare is a really tough team. Clare is, in my opinion, probably the second best team in Class B football behind Ithaca. Clare's only got 1 loss, and that's to Ithaca, and that was a 3-point loss at the beginning of the season. And Beaverton held their own against Clare last week. They 14-14 at halftime. They fell apart in the second half. Take us through a little bit of that game and how you saw some of Beaverton's strengths come out.
Well, I want to take you back to a week prior to last Friday when the Roscommon Bucks played Clare up north in Roscommon. And that game was, Clare was up 35-8 at one time in the second half.
Yep. And
then Roscommon came back and made it a good scoring game, 35-24, I believe was the final score of that. Mm-hmm. But and then to play Beaverton the next week and to get held to 14 points in the first half and only 31 points in the whole game, and Beaverton held their own the whole game, and I think they kind of established that mentality of they can play with whoever they want to play with, because I mean it's all it is momentum and the mindset that you can play as as good as you want to.
Well, Beaverton should certainly have a good mindset going into the final game of the season. They're one win away from the playoffs. Their current record is 5-3, 6 in urine, I guess is the rule. Coming off that loss to Clare should definitely be, honestly, a mood booster for the Beaverton team, knowing that they went toe-to-toe with Clare. Let's talk about Gladwin season. Drew, I know you're not really at a lot of the Gladwin games, but I guess I will give you guys a brief rundown of the Gladwin season. Flying G's have had some tough games this year. They're 1-7, I believe, right now. Their only win coming against Farwell. It's been a long road for the team. There's a couple injuries that are holding them back. Unfortunately for the team, they haven't been shut out. We have to be thankful for that. But coming in this final game against Beaverton, you know, Gladwin's going to put everything else aside. I know it doesn't matter when you play Beaverton. It's rivalry time. Gladwin does not want to lose to Beaverton, and they're going to play just like it's a fresh season. Now, taking you back through their season, Gladwin lost their first three, Shepherd, Grayling, and Clare. We got to see a little bit of the team here, what they were going to be like throughout the rest of the year. You know, the team was still getting, if everybody was fitting into their roles still. We saw Gladwin starting quarterback Jaden Menema go down with an injury. Dylan McDonald has filled in, fairly well for a backup. You know, he has struggled with the interceptions this year, but you have to realize that Gladwin is trying to win games, and sometimes you got to make desperation passes. You got to get something going, and sometimes a drive can be ended by interception. It happens, but Gladwin certainly will, I guess, be ready for Beaverton coming October 21st, which is Friday. And I think that the biggest thing they're going to have to work on against Beaverton is scoring points. We know that Gladwin's defense has struggled this year, and personally, I think that it's been just because of a size problem with Gladwin. You know, I've been watching high school football here for a couple of years and following all the teams. And one thing I've noticed in a winning team is that the big, physical, strong football teams win games. Sometimes it's the coaching. You know, sometimes things can get thrown off depending on what offense you're running or, you know, where you put certain players. But I think the biggest thing in high school football is these big, physical football teams win games. You know, we've seen that from Harrison, we've seen that from Clare. These big, strong kids they just beat you up and they run you over. Unfortunately for Gladwin, they don't have a lot of size this year. Their offensive defensive line really have to fight hard against a lot of bigger kids this year, and that's been their biggest struggle. You know, they've made up for it. They had a couple games where they scored a few passing touchdowns. You know, Grayling, they put up 26 points. Most of that came later in the game. But the big thing against Beaverton is their lines are going to have to hold up if they want to win. Beaverton is a very strong defense. They're very aggressive, and they have a very good run game. So that's Gladwin's big thing right now is working on their lines. And Drew, you know Beaverton's strengths and weaknesses better than I do. Talk about what they're going to be working on against Gladwin.
Well, I think that this year, in a nutshell, the success for Beaverton has been in the run game. This is through week 7. My stats are through week 7 on here. And Beaverton has 26 touchdowns total, 22 coming on the ground. 10 by Hartner, 5 by David Jenkins, 4 by Nate Taylor, a couple by Eric Cassidy, and 1 by Kyle Cassidy. So I think they're gonna lean on the run game, but if they have to, they're gonna go to the pass game, which they have a reliable pass game this year. Hartner's really chucking the ball well, and their line's there, and they're giving him a lot of time in the pocket, and just whenever they can, they throw it up. They have great receivers. Nate Taylor's really been a good receiver this year. Marcus Aberline stepped up a little bit, and I just believe that it's not really a balanced attack, but it really can be if you get all the momentum going. And there's one of these times the defense could be expect and run, and then you get them with a play action pass, or then they drop back into coverage, and then you run right up the middle. So I think the key for Beaverton this week will be to try to keep Gladwin on their heels on defense and just try to keep pounding them, and then maybe throw up a play action pass once in a while and just kind of keep them on their heels on defense.
Yeah, it's been a rough week for Gladwin on defense. Both sides of the ball, really, but the defense is really going to have to step up to keep this game even between Beaverton. Beaverton, we know, has the ability to pass. Their run game is their strengths, and Gladwin has struggled against the run this year. We've seen the teams like Houghton Lake last week. Just big, physical, fast kids. Gladwin couldn't keep up. Roscommon's another team that likes to run the ball. 52-6 over Gladwin. Harrison 34-14. It's definitely going to be a battle for Gladwin, to say the least. And this is going to be, honestly, the first time in a long time that Gladwin probably had to battle for this final game of the year. And if you look back at our records, Beaverton's going to finish this year with a winning record, regardless of what happens Friday night. They're going to finish 5-4, about 500, or they're going to finish 6-3, make the playoffs. Gladwin is 1-7 right now. You know, no matter what happens, they're going to finish with a losing record. This is the first time since 1977 that Beaverton will finish with a winning record and Gladwin will finish with a losing record. Now that year, Gladwin did beat Beaverton. I think it was 20-7. But I think this is really the best Beaverton football team that Gladwin has seen really since that '86 team, and it's definitely going to be interesting how it plays out on Friday night. Ultimately, you know, I think this is the Beavers' game to lose. You know, I'm going to give it to Beaverton. They're going to come in fired up. You know, they want to make the playoffs. They know they have a good shot at beating Gladwin this year, and I don't think Gladwin has what it takes to pull off the win. They're battling injuries right now. Mason Cisco, Fitzpatrick, both of them top performers on offense, were out last week. You know, I don't know the extent of injuries or what that was about, but I don't know. Do not know if they'll be back Friday night. But if they want to win, those two need to be in the offense. And yeah, I just see Beaverton coming away with a win this year.
Now, can you give me an X factor?
An X factor for who? Beaverton or Gladwin?
Gladwin, and I'll give you one for Beaverton when you give me yours.
Well, Gladwin's X factor is going to be in the hands of quarterback Dylan McDonald. He has to keep the ball in Gladwin's possession. You know, he's one of the leading rushers on the team this year. He's a very versatile quarterback. You know, he throws the ball fairly well, but you know his strength is the run game. You know, he's going to have to keep the ball in Gladwin's hands, keep the interceptions down. He's got 7 TDs to go with 13 interceptions this year. You know, not the greatest numbers, but you know, we got to remember he's filling in for a backup quarterback. You know, he's one of the leading players, you know, on defense, and he's really going to have to control the tempo of the game Friday night and keep it out of Beaverton's hands, because Beaverton will score a lot of points, I think, Friday night. But if Gladwin can control the tempo of the game with the offense, push the ball down the field, don't turn the ball over, put up a couple of touchdowns, you know, then we'll have a game. You know, and it's going to be the X factor. The offense they're going to be the ones who determine what happens in this game.
And I think, how many interceptions did you say he had?
He's thrown 13 this year. Okay,
and I just want to make another stat here. Beaverton's defense has picked off 11 passes this year, including 4 against Harrison. And I have 2 X factors for Beaverton in this Friday's game. One of them being senior quarterback Nick Hartner. The last time he will play Gladwin as a Beaverton football player, this is through week 7. He has 350 rushing yards to go along with 445 passing yards. So that's an average of 112 yards a game, which is really it's really a balanced attack for Hartner. He can beat you through the air, or he can beat you with his legs. So I think that the consistency that he's shown all year will mean a lot for this week's game, and also senior David Jenkins, I think, will be a very interesting player to watch this week, because he does it all. He runs the ball, he catches the ball, he returns kicks, he returns punts. He has the most all-purpose yards on the Beaverton team with 661. The next closest is 447. So that is an average of 94.4 all-purpose yards. Now, all-purpose includes kicks, punts, interception returns, fumble returns, everything like that. So if those 2 guys can step up like they have been all season, and I think they'll be able to lead their team to a victory.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, I think, a night for the quarterbacks. It's going to be, let's see, you said Hartner's a senior, so he's going to definitely want to go out on top. Dylan McDonald's a senior. He's going to want to go out on top. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how those 2 play. Both very good runners. Can the defenses stop them? That's going to be the biggest thing Friday night. I don't know if we'll see a lot of passes through the air. I think both teams are going to be concerned about turning the ball over. They're going to want to control the tempo. It's definitely going to be, I think, in my opinion, the the ball's going to be on the ground a lot. I think whoever's defense comes up big and makes the stops, or whoever's offense finds the gap, and it's going to be an interesting game, I think. Now, let's see. Gladwin is going to be avoiding a 1-8 finish, and I don't think that Gladwin has finished with less than 2 wins since post 1950. Their worst season has been 2-7, and I think they did that twice. Gladwin's not a team that has a lot of losing seasons, but if they lose to Beaverton Friday night, this 1-8 record is going to put a damper in their, I guess, almost perfect record that they've had as a football team. They don't have, Gladwin hasn't had a lot of losing seasons, and I think that's another factor that's going to motivate Gladwin. Anything can happen Friday night, especially when there's so much on the line. Gladwin's not going to make the playoffs, but you don't want to lose to Beaverton. You don't want to finish 1-8. The worst record that the program has had, I think, that I've seen. And Beaverton wants to make the playoffs, and Beaverton wants to beat Gladwin. The rest of the season, in my opinion, is going to be wiped clean before we start this game Friday night. But Drew and I both agree that we think Beaverton's going to come out on top. It's Beaverton's to lose. They've just played too well this year. And if you look at the matchups of the same teams that they played this year, Beaverton has just played much better. They've, even the losses haven't been very big point spread, I guess. And I think it's going to be Beaver victory Friday night.
Yeah, the biggest thing I will think the biggest thing that's got to be going through Beaverton's heads right now is, okay, we're 5-3. We need 1 win to get in the playoffs, and look who's standing in our way.
Yep.
A team that we could very well beat on Friday and clinch our ticket to the playoffs and break the almighty streak that's hung like a dark cloud over Beaverton for the past 29 years. So expect a packed house on Friday. It's in Beaverton.
Yeah, let's not forget it's in Beaverton. So if Beaverton wins this game, not only are the fans going to be celebrating the streak over, but their team's going to go to the playoffs. What do you think's going to happen if Beaverton wins in Beaverton Friday night?
Oh, I think it'll be a mass chaos.
People going to storm the field, you think?
Well, very well possible. I would guess, and they're gonna ring that victory bell, and everybody's gonna go crazy.
Yeah. Now, if Beaverton wins, I think there's a good possibility that they can face. I think they're Class C, right?
Yeah. It would be Division 6.
What did I hear? They could possibly face Roscommon or somebody within the Jack Pine first round. Is that what I heard? Do you think anything about
really?
that?
Yeah. No, I haven't heard anything about that. I heard from a source that it's probably going to be somewhere local, probably somewhere within an hour's drive. But you got to get there first.
Yeah. For
sure. You got to get there first. You got to win on Friday, and then and then celebrate over the weekend and get ready for your playoff game the next week.
So this might not be the last Jack Pine matchup we see of the season, but that is Drew and I's kind of rundown of the season so far for Gladwin and Beaverton football, and it's been quite the flip-flop for both teams. Complete opposite, if anything. So on Friday night, I think the Beavers are going to take it, most likely by at least 12 points. I'm going to give them a 24-12 victory for the Beavers. What do you got, Drew?
Well, when I look at the scores from both teams right here, Beaverton has put up at least 4 touchdowns in 4 games this year, and Gladwin's put up looks like 4 touchdowns in two games this year. So yeah, for sure, I'm going to give the edge to Beaverton. I think that the score of that game will be.
You going to give them 4 touchdowns?
No, well, I'm really going to think about it because of the momentum that they have right now. I'm going to say 34-6.
34-6. All right, there you go, folks. Drew and I are both predicting a Beaverton victory Friday night. It's definitely going to be an interesting game. We hope to see you all there cheering both teams on. My name is Nathan Paisley with the Record and Clarion, and we are also welcoming guest Drew Porter here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.